buenas noches, amigas y amigos de Diálogo Abierto. Hoy vamos a indagar en la obra de uno de los más reconocidos artistas artesanos vivos del mundo. Se trata del norteamericano CHIHULY. Creador de formas y colores inigualables en el vidrio, CHIHULY acaba de inaugurar su primera gran exposición de jardín en Asia. La instalación Glass in Bloom o vidrio en flor está en los jardines de la Bahía de Singapur. Según la crítica, la obra de CHIHULY pone al límite la imaginación, la ley de la gravedad y la interpretación de la luz. 236 museos de 4 continentes poseen obras de CHIHULY, quien ha recibido 12 doctorados honoris causa a lo largo de su carrera. Veamos un reporte sobre Glass in Bloom en los jardines de la Bahía de Singapur.
140 works are displayed in CHIHULY's first major garden exhibition in Asia.
Ahead of its official opening on Saturday, senior culture correspondent Ong Sofen is here to share more. Hello Sofen. The Gardens by the Bay showcase includes 25 large-scale sculptures. These are intricate works of art. I have to ask, how on earth did they make their way all the way from the US to right here, Gardens by the Bay?
The CHIHULY Studios is actually based in Seattle. So the Seattle is also home to Amazon.com. So it actually took a while for the sculptures to get shipped out because, as you know, last year was pandemic year. So everybody was buying stuff from Amazon. So the shipment actually got delayed for a few weeks in Seattle before it made it out of Seattle. Then along the way, it did a stopover in China. So the organizers were kind of worried that it would get stuck in China over Chinese New Year. But all the boxes arrived in Singapore in March. And the CHIHULY Studios also sent a team of 11 of their experts to Singapore to help install all these large-scale installations. So they had to go through quarantine before they helped set up all the sculptures around the gardens.
Wow, sounds like really quite an undertaking. Yeah. So, Sofen, I'm actually quite a big fan of CHIHULY. I've seen, his sculptures at Ritz-Carlton, for example, and I've also been to the Bellagio in Vegas, where, in the lobby, there's this beautiful sculpture on the ceiling. So, I have plans to go to Gardens by the Bay to check this out. So, what are the key pieces that I can look out for?
I think that each of the conservatories has a very beautiful star centerpiece. For the flower domes, you need to look out for the floral field centerpiece, which actually incorporates 3 CHIHULY sculptures, and the plants around it are actually planted to echo the colors. So you've got like begonias and hydrangeas, and they're all very pretty in pinks and purples. And in the cloud forest dome, there's this really absolutely stunning piece that's kind of like 10 meters, which is like about 3 stories high, and it's hung off of a 5-story at 5 stories up. So it's actually the first time that a CHIHULY piece has been hung next to a waterfall. So once you walk into the cloud forest dome, there's this like stunning visual. But actually my favorites are outdoors. There are these 2 sculpture works that are actually installed on ponds. So the ethereal white Persians at the Serene Garden Pond is really quite stunning because they darken the water with ink so that there's this perfect reflection of the white sculpture that looks like lilies in the water itself. So it's a perfect Instagram moment.
El vidrio es hoy parte habitual en la vida cotidiana. Tomamos agua en un vaso, nos vemos en un espejo o admiramos un bello objeto de cristal. Pero no siempre fue así. Hoy, museólogos y críticos opinan que la obra de Dale CHIHULY es un compendio de artesanía y fragilidad. Su mirada eleva el oficio veneciano del vidrio soplado a arte total. Ese oficio fue secreto durante cientos de años. En el siglo X de nuestra era ya eran famosos los cristales y espejos de Venecia. El proceso del vidrio soplado requiere altísimas temperaturas. Se cuenta que por el peligro de incendio en Venecia, los talleres artesanales fueron trasladados a la isla de Murano en el siglo XI. También se prohibió a los maestros artesanos abandonar Venecia para así guardar el secreto de la fabricación de los hermosos vidrios. Pero, como bien dicen, todo es secreto hasta un día. Actualmente miles de turistas visitan la isla veneciana y los cristales de Murano siguen siendo famosos en el mundo. El 20 de septiembre de 2021, el norteamericano Dale CHIHULY cumplirá 80 años. Sigue demostrando que tiene bien merecido el calificativo de ser quien elevó el oficio del vidrio soplado veneciano a arte total.
All right, good, beautiful. So you take sand and fire and put it together and you have glass. And it turns into a liquid. Imagine the sand turns into a liquid, and then you stick a pipe in there and gather it up like honey and bring it out and blow down there, and you blow a shape that over the centuries glass blowers have learn to make it into an incredible array of forms. And I've been lucky enough to come along at the right time, at the right place, to be able to expand many of the forms that were made throughout this 2,000-year history. I was using just human breath going down into this miraculous material, blowing it up, pushing its limits, making it as thin as I could, getting it so hot that it would almost collapse and begin to move. So I was pushing the edge of thinness and collapsibility and making new forms.
You know, the baskets did evolve into the C forms, and the C forms evolved into the Persians. But, you know, a series like the Venetians will come in, which are totally different. You know, or the chandeliers, which came out of nowhere.
It requires a totally different type of thinking. I mean, we're not talking about objects here. We're talking about 12 or 1,400 pieces of glass making one object.
And really, what I've always been interested in is space. Even when I made the cylinders, the single object cylinder, or the MAGIAs, my interest was always in space. So I was thinking not of the object itself, but how the object would look in a room.
The chandeliers don't really relate to that evolution of the basket C forms Persians, probably. So, you know, as an artist, I just make, I just work, things just come out. So it's not that you're constantly searching for something new. It's just that something new comes.
This is important. Make them as big as we can. Bigger, the better.
I don't know why I work so large. I very often push a series to its maximum size. I think sometimes I do it just to keep the glassblowers at the very edge of their technical ability, to keep the tension high, to make it exciting, to make it so that we don't know whether it's going to break or not break. If you know exactly what you're doing and you can make it every time, it's not going to be interesting. It has to have this tension if the pieces are going to be good. And so we constantly push ourselves. You know, I push them, they push me. I try to get them to go beyond what they can do. It's more interesting that way.
Las obras de CHIHULY aparecen también en el cine. Ese es el caso de la película dirigida por Richard Linklater y protagonizada por Kate Blanchett. La protagonista de ¿A dónde vas, Bernadette? Fija su atención por un momento en un plafón de vidrio soplado de Dale CHIHULY.
Buenos días, cariño.
Hola, mamá.
Bernadette Fox era ni más ni menos lo más arriesgado en el mundo de la arquitectura hace 20 años.
Un ejemplo de importantes museos que acogen obras de Dale CHIHULY es el Groninger en los Países Bajos. La instalación Glass in Bloom o vidrio en flor, actualmente en los jardines de la Bahía de Singapur, es una muestra del estilo de trabajo desarrollado por Dale CHIHULY a lo largo de su vida. Así lo prueba la exhibición permanente CHIHULY Garden and Glass, abierta desde 2012 en Seattle, ciudad de residencia del escultor del vidrio soplado.
Dale CHIHULY has been experimenting with and creating masterful art installations with glass for several decades, creating designs all over the world and featured in over 200 museums. Invited by the Wright family to exhibit his work in Seattle Center, CHIHULY and his team went to work on repurposing a 1.5-acre area. Breaking ground in 2011, the CHIHULY Garden and Glass opened its doors in 2012, featuring breathtaking exhibits from past installations with brand new concepts and designs by Dale CHIHULY.
The cool thing about this exhibition is that Dale had a part in all of it from beginning to end. So he actually got to design the specific installation for this space. So one of my favorites, when you first walk in, you get to see something that Dale did in the early 70s. When people really weren't working with glass in our country, mostly the Venetians were making beautiful vessels, but Dale decided to, he was experimenting with glass, and he decided to drop glass, blow into glass and drop it off of a ladder and let it hit the ground. And then he put neon and argon in it. So he did this beautiful installation when you first walk in that has all these pods of glass filled with neon and argon. It kind of gives you an idea of who Dale is right from the beginning. Like, he'd love to experiment. Yeah, an innovator, exactly.
Absolutely.
The next gallery you see is the Northwest Room. You start to get an idea about how Dale loves to collect. So it has some of his collections in there, personal collections. He collects baskets, Northwest Native American baskets, and those are displayed next to his glass baskets. I think each gallery is a surprise. Other highlights, one of them is the Persian ceiling. So you walk into an all-white room and you look up, and it's a ceiling filled with different colors and shapes and beautiful glass that Dale and a great team of glassblowers created.
And I know that there's one big showcase piece that he was always excited about doing, and you can tell the people about that a little bit.
Sure, so Dale for years has just loved glass houses and greenhouses, and he had this idea of taking a glass house and turning it into an exhibition space.
Like a greenhouse type
Like
space.
a greenhouse,
Okay,
right, where you could see through glass to look at glass.
Drawing inspiration from two of CHIHULY's favorite buildings, Sainte-Chapelle in Paris and Crystal Palace in London, the Glass House, as it's called, is the center and most awe-inspiring portion of the exhibit. Adorned with one of CHIHULY's largest suspended sculptures, stretching over 100 feet, covering more than 4,500 square feet, the Glass House is beautiful at any time of day, but comes alive at night, lit to perfection.
And what's cool about it is it's right underneath the Space Needle. And on New Year's Eve, when the Space Needle lights off all its fireworks, we had a great party underneath the Space Needle, and you could see up through the Persians, you could see fireworks everywhere.
And I also noticed that there is a garden surrounding it, and there's some very interesting glasswork in the garden itself.
So Dale worked with a landscape architect to kind of mirror the plants and the art together, so it's a real synergy, and the plants complement both in color and shape the artwork that Dale has decided to put in there.
You know, I've been around a little bit to different museums and different gardens and whatnot, and I see Dale's work all over the United States. So it's not only here that he does this in a lot of different installations.
He does. He likes to go into gardens and transform the space, or go into a museum and transform the space. I think what's unique about us, though, he got to decide what the art would look like and design the gallery around the space. And you never get that kind of luxury in a museum. They give you the space and then you have to conform your art to the space. But here he was able to conform the whole building to his art.
CHIHULY Garden and Glass is a dazzling display of what can come from decades of experimenting and innovation in the art of glass. And Dale CHIHULY continues to amaze all those who come to see his beautiful creations.
Espero les haya gustado conocer la obra de Dale CHIHULY, un artista artesano que ha logrado distinguirse en esa tradición nacida en Venecia en el siglo X y que permite convertir la fragilidad del vidrio en una poderosa demostración de las capacidades creativas del ser humano. Les dejamos con la belleza. Hasta otro diálogo.